I dragged a bleeding man off the side of a deserted road and saved his life with my own hands. And less than 12 hours later, the police were standing at my apartment door calling me the last person to see him alive. If you had been driving down that road in the middle of the storm, would you have stopped? My name is Emma, and until that night, my life was painfully ordinary. I was 29, worked as a claims processor for an insurance company in Hartford, and lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a flickering kitchen light I kept meaning to fix. Nothing dramatic, nothing dangerous. Just the kind of life where every day feels like a copy of the one before it. That Thursday had already been awful before the rain even started. I stayed late at work because my supervisor dumped a stack of end-of-quarter files on my desk at 5:47 p.m., like it was somehow my emergency. By the time I left, my mascara had smudged, my head was pounding, and I still had 3 missed calls from my mother, which usually meant either guilt or bad news. With her, sometimes both. We had argued that morning. Again. Your sister needs help, Emma. Your sister is 32, Mom. She's going through a hard time. I remember gripping my coffee so hard the lid bent under my thumb. When is she not? My mother hung up on me after that. So by the time I finally got into my car that night, the sky was already bruised black, the rain was slamming against the windshield, and I felt raw in that dangerous way people do when they've been holding themselves together for too long. The highway exit near Millbrook was closed because of flooding, so my GPS rerouted me onto an old county road I barely recognized. No streetlights, no gas stations, just wet trees, muddy shoulders, and the sound of my tires hissing over the pavement. That was when I started feeling it. You know that horrible sense that something is wrong before you can prove it? Like the air itself is warning you? I slowed down, peering through the blur of wipers and rain, and at first I thought it was a broken signpost lying near the ditch. Then it moved. I slammed on the brakes so hard the car fishtailed. For 1 second, I just sat there, both hands locked around the steering wheel, staring through the windshield while my heart pounded so hard it actually hurt. There was someone on the side of the road. A man. Half in the mud, half on the asphalt. One arm lifted weakly, then dropped. Oh my God, I whispered. Every smart instinct told me to keep driving and call 911 from a safe distance. Every horror story I'd ever heard started like this. A dark road, a wounded stranger, a woman alone. But then lightning flashed across the trees and I saw the blood. There was so much of it. I grabbed my phone and ran out into the rain. He looked about 35, maybe older, hard to tell under the mud and blood streaking his face. His dark coat was torn at the shoulder. One side of his forehead was split open. His breathing came in ragged little pulls like every inhale cost him something. Hey, can you hear me? I dropped to my knees beside him, rain soaking through my slacks instantly. His eyes fluttered open. Gray, sharp, even through the pain. Please, he rasped. Don't leave me here. I'm calling an ambulance. His hand shot up and gripped my wrist with surprising strength. No police. The words hit me wrong immediately. What? No police, he said again, lower this time, like it mattered more than the blood pouring down his neck. Please, just hospital. I should have listened to my instincts right there. I know that now. But in that moment, all I could see was a dying man in the rain. You're bleeding out. I know. His fingers tightened. If you call them, they'll say I'm dead before morning. I stared at him. What does that even mean? But that wasn't the worst part. He looked past me, into the darkness behind the trees with a kind of terror I still can't forget. They're late, he whispered. A shiver ran through me so violently I nearly lost my balance. Who's late? He didn't answer. He just tried to sit up and nearly collapsed. I made the decision in the next 5 seconds and it changed everything. I got him into my back seat with more effort than I thought my body could handle. My hands slipped from blood and rain. He groaned once, then pressed something cold into my palm. I looked down. A brass key. Old-fashioned, heavy. Attached to a black tag with one number scratched into it. 214. "What is this?" I asked. "If something happens," he said, barely audible, "don't trust the woman at the desk." My skin went cold. What woman? At the hospital? But his eyes had already slid shut. I drove like a lunatic through the storm, checking every few seconds to make sure he was still breathing. By the time I pulled into the emergency entrance of St. Catherine's, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely put the car in park. 2 orderlies came out with a wheelchair the second they saw him. Too fast, like they were expecting him. One of them looked at the man in my back seat, and then at the other with an expression so brief I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Inside, the waiting area was strangely quiet. Fluorescent lights, rain tapping against the glass. A blonde woman at the reception desk looked up at me, and for just 1 second, I saw something flash across her face. Not concern, recognition. "Name?" she asked flatly. I don't know. I found him on County Road 8. He was hurt." Before I could finish, the man on the gurney opened his eyes one last time and turned his head toward me. And then he said 5 words I didn't understand until the next morning. "They chose you on purpose." Then he disappeared behind swinging doors. And I had no idea that by sunrise he would be gone. And my name would already be in a police report. The knock came at 7:13 the next morning. Not a normal knock. Not a neighbor asking for sugar or a delivery driver balancing a package on one knee. This was hard. Official. The kind that lands in your chest before your brain catches up. I was still wearing the same sweatshirt from the night before. I had barely slept. My hands smelled faintly like hospital soap and dried blood no matter how many times I washed them. When I looked through the peephole, I saw 2 people. One was a uniformed police officer. The other was a tall man in a dark coat, holding a leather folder against his chest like he already knew exactly how this conversation would go. My stomach dropped. I opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" The officer looked at me first. "Emma Holloway?" "Yes." The man beside him flipped open the folder. "Detective Nolan Price. We need to ask you about a man you brought to St. Catherine's Hospital at approximately 11:42 p.m. last night." Every bit of warmth left my body. "How do you know that?" The detective's eyes moved over my face with that cold, professional stillness detectives always have in movies. Except this wasn't a movie, and there was nothing distant or entertaining about it. "Because your vehicle was caught on hospital surveillance entering the emergency lane," he said. "And because the man you brought in never officially checked in." I stared at him. "That's impossible. They took him inside." The officer and detective exchanged a look. Then Price said, "Ms. Holloway, may we come in?" I should have said no. I know that now too. But fear makes you stupid in very polite ways. You start cooperating because you think innocent people have nothing to hide. So I stepped aside. My apartment suddenly looked embarrassingly small with police inside it. The dishes in the sink, my work bag on the chair, my damp shoes still by the radiator. Detective Price stayed standing, glancing around once before focusing on me again. "Tell us exactly what happened." And I did. I told them about the storm, the road, the man in the ditch, the blood, the hospital, the strange receptionist, even the part where he begged me not to call the police, which, judging by the detective's expression, was exactly the wrong thing to say. "You still chose to transport an unidentified injured man in your personal vehicle," he said. "Yes, because he needed help. Or because you knew him." I didn't. "Then why didn't you call 911? I felt my face heat instantly. "Because he was panicking and he said no police," Price finished. "Convenient." That word hit like a slap. "Excuse me?" The officer shifted awkwardly near the door, but the detective didn't blink. We checked the ER log. No unidentified male matching your description was admitted last night. No registration. No intake. No surgical response. Nothing. I just stared at him. That can't be true. It is. No, I said, louder now. I watched them take him inside. Price opened the folder and slid a printed photograph across my kitchen table. It was my car. A still shot from a security camera. Time-stamped. Rain streaking the image. My sedan under the hospital entrance lights. Then he placed down a second photo. My back seat. Dark stains across the upholstery. Blood. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my fingers hurt. The lab is already processing samples, he said. And there's more. Your phone pinged near County Road 8 for 23 minutes before you arrived at the hospital. I looked up. Because I stopped there. He leaned in slightly. Or because that's where something happened. For a second, I actually couldn't breathe. You think I hurt him? I think, he said calmly. Your story has a lot of holes. I laughed then, but not because anything was funny. It was that awful kind of laugh that escapes when panic and disbelief collide. I saved him. Can anyone verify that? No, because there was no one else there. So no witnesses, he said. That was the moment the humiliation really began, because I could hear how insane it sounded. I found a bleeding stranger on an empty road. He told me not to call police. I drove him to a hospital where apparently no one recorded him. Now he was gone, and my car was full of his blood. Well, if I were standing in the detective's place, I might not have believed me either. Then Price asked, "Did he leave anything behind?" I froze. The key. Still in the pocket of my coat hanging by the door. I don't know why I didn't mention it. Maybe instinct. Maybe fear. Maybe because the second he asked, I remembered the man's voice again. Don't trust the woman at the desk. And suddenly I didn't trust anyone. No, I said carefully. Nothing. The detective studied me for one long second, like he knew I was lying but couldn't prove it yet. Then he closed the folder. We may need you downtown for a formal statement, he said. Do not leave the city. After they left, I locked the door, turned the deadbolt, and just stood there in silence. Then I ran for my coat. The brass key was still in the pocket. Heavy. Real. Not imagined. Attached to that black tag. 214. My pulse was hammering as I turned it over in my hand. That was when I noticed something I'd missed the night before. Tiny engraved letters on the back. Morningside Motor Lodge, I'd never heard of it. But in that exact moment, with police treating me like a suspect and a missing man turning my life inside out, I realized one thing with absolute certainty. I had not ended up on that road by accident. And whatever waited behind door 214 was either the proof that could save me, or the reason someone wanted me blamed in the first place. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't call my boss. I didn't check my email. I didn't even change out of the same clothes. Because something inside me had already shifted. Quietly, but completely. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was being set up. And I needed answers before the police decided they already had them. The rain had stopped, but the sky still looked heavy as I drove across town, my fingers gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. I had typed the name into my phone 3 times just to make sure it was real. Morningside Motor Lodge. It sat on the edge of the city, the kind of place people don't choose unless they have to. Faded sign. Flickering neon. Half the letters barely lit up in the gray daylight. I almost turned around, but then I remembered the detective's voice. Your story has a lot of holes. And worse. The way the receptionist had looked at that man, like she knew exactly who he was. I parked 2 rows away and sat there for a full minute watching the building. Room numbers ran along the outside, peeling paint, thin curtains, a place where secrets felt cheap and disposable. But something about it made my chest tighten. like I had already been here before. And that was when it hit me. 2 weeks ago, my GPS had glitched while I was driving home from work, rerouting me through this exact area. I remembered being annoyed, taking a wrong turn, passing a motel with a broken sign. This motel. At the time, it meant nothing. Now it felt like a breadcrumb. I didn't realize it then, but that moment would matter. I stepped out of the car. Every sound felt too loud. Gravel under my shoes. A distant door slamming. The low hum of traffic far away. The front office door creaked when I pushed it open, and my entire body went cold because she was there. The same woman. The receptionist from the hospital. Blonde hair pulled back. Pale lipstick. That same flat expression like nothing ever surprised her. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. Too quickly. "Can I help you?" My throat tightened. I think I have a reservation. Lie. Terrible lie. But I needed to see her reaction. Her eyes flicked over my face, then down to my hands, like she was checking for something. Recognition. She knew exactly who I was. "I don't see anything under your name," she said. I swallowed. "Maybe under Holloway." Her smile didn't move. "I'm afraid not." Silence stretched between us. And then, before I could stop myself, I did something reckless. I pulled the key out of my pocket and placed it on the counter. The second it touched the surface, her entire expression changed, just for a fraction of a second. But I saw it. Fear. Real fear. "Where did you get that?" she asked sharply. My heart started pounding. "So it does belong here." "I asked you a question." "And I'm asking you one," I shot back, my voice shaking despite my effort to stay calm. "Who was that man last night?" Her eyes hardened instantly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You saw him. At the hospital." "I work here," she said flatly. "Not at any hospital." The lie came too fast. Too clean. And that's when I understood something important. She wasn't just involved. She was trained to deny everything. "Room 214, I said quietly. That got her. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the desk. "You need to leave." "Not until you tell me what's going on." "You need to leave now," she repeated, louder this time. But I didn't move, because in that exact moment I noticed something behind her. A small monitor. Security cameras. One of them was showing the hallway outside the rooms. And right there, in black and white, room 214. The door was slightly open. My breath caught. Someone was inside. I looked back at her slowly. "You said no one was staying here." "I didn't say that." "You said there was no reservation." Her jaw tightened. "Last warning." But I was already stepping back. Already moving toward the door, because whatever was behind that door, it was the only thing that could prove I wasn't lying. Or destroy me completely. I walked down the row of rooms, my heart beat loud in my ears. Every step felt heavier than the last. The air smelled like damp carpet and something metallic I couldn't quite place. The door to 214 creaked slightly in the wind. I reached out, paused. But that wasn't the worst part. Because just as my fingers touched the handle, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. "Hello?" Silence, then a man's voice. Low, controlled. "You shouldn't have gone there, Emma." Every muscle in my body locked. "Who is this?" A quiet breath on the other end. Then, "We chose you because you're predictable." My blood turned to ice. "What do you want from me?" A pause, and then the words that changed everything. "You were never supposed to save him." The line went dead. My hand was still on the door, and in that moment, I realized the truth that made my stomach drop. I wasn't just a witness. I was part of their plan. And whatever was waiting inside room 214 was meant for me. My hand was still on the door when the call ended. You were never supposed to save him. Those words didn't just scare me. They reframed everything. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. And I had walked straight into it. For a second, I almost ran. I actually took half a step back, my instincts screaming at me to get back in my car, drive somewhere public, call a lawyer, call anyone. But then I remembered Detective Price's face. Your story has a lot of holes. If I left now, I would stay the suspect. If I opened that door, I might finally understand why. So I pushed it open. Slowly. The room smelled like stale air and something sharp, like disinfectant trying to cover something worse. Hello? I called out, my voice barely steady. No answer. The curtains were half drawn, letting in just enough gray daylight to make everything look washed out and unreal. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted, like someone had left in a hurry, or been taken. My eyes moved across the room, scanning everything the way fear forces you to. And then I saw it. Blood. Not as much as last night, but enough. On the edge of the mattress. My stomach turned. He was here, I whispered. Which meant one thing. The hospital hadn't lost him. Someone had moved him. And that wasn't the worst part. Because right next to the bed was a chair. And on that chair, a black duffel bag. Unzipped. Like it was waiting. For me. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Every second I expected someone to burst through the door behind me, but nothing happened. Just silence. I reached into the bag. Inside, a laptop, a burner phone, and a stack of documents. My hands started shaking as I pulled them out. The first page had a logo at the top. And the second I saw it, something inside me snapped into place. Because I recognized it. My company. The insurance firm I had worked at for the past 4 years. What? I whispered. I flipped through the pages. Claims, high-value cases, internal reports. But they weren't normal files. They were flagged, highlighted, marked with notes in red ink. Words like denied strategically, delay until expiration, client escalation risk, ignore. My chest tightened. These weren't mistakes. These were patterns. Someone had been documenting fraud. Systematic, intentional. And then I saw the name. At the top of one of the reports. Daniel Vance. My breath caught. That was him. The man from the road. The man I had dragged out of the rain. He wasn't a random victim. He worked at my company. Or had. I grabbed the burner phone next. It powered on instantly. One message, just one. No contact name, no number, just text. If you're reading this, they're already watching you. Don't go to the police. Trust the file. Room 214 is only step 1. My hands went cold. I whispered. Then something else clicked into place. His words from the road. Don't call the police. His warning at the hospital. Don't trust the woman at the desk, the receptionist, the motel, the missing records, the call I just received. This wasn't just about him. This was bigger. Way bigger. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Outside. My entire body froze. Slow, controlled, getting closer. Not a random guest. Someone who knew exactly which door to walk toward. My heart slammed against my ribs as I looked around the room. No back exit. Nowhere to hide. The doorknob shifted slightly. Just enough to make my breath stop. And then, a voice. Calm. Familiar. Too familiar. Emma, I know you're in there. I felt the ground drop out from under me. Because I recognized that voice instantly. Detective Price. But that wasn't possible, because if he was outside that door, then the police weren't investigating this. They were part of it. And I was already trapped. Emma, I know you're in there. My entire body went numb. For a second, I couldn't even move. Couldn't think. The name in my head and the voice outside the door refused to match. Detective Price? The same man who stood in my apartment just hours ago, questioning me like I was the suspect. Now he was here, outside room 214, looking for me. That wasn't coincidence, that was confirmation. I wasn't part of an investigation. I was inside a setup. My eyes darted around the room, my brain finally snapping out of shock and into something colder. Sharper. Think, Emma, the laptop, the documents, the burner phone. This was evidence. And if he was here, it meant one thing. They knew I had it. The doorknob rattled once, harder this time. Emma, he said again, calm, controlled, almost patient. You don't want to make this worse. My fear didn't disappear, but it changed, because suddenly I understood something important. If they wanted me dead, they wouldn't be knocking. They needed me. Alive, contained, framed. And that's when everything inside me shifted. I stopped being the victim in that exact second. Quietly, carefully, I grabbed the burner phone and slipped it into my pocket. Then I took the stack of documents and shoved them back into the bag except for one page. The one with my company's logo, the one with Daniel Vance's name. I folded it and tucked it into my sleeve. Insurance claims processor. That's what they thought I was. Quiet, predictable, easy to control. They had no idea how much I noticed at work. The patterns, the numbers that didn't add up, the cases that disappeared without explanation. I had ignored it before, I wouldn't anymore. The door shook again. Last chance, Emma. I took a breath. Then I did something he wasn't expecting. I walked to the door and opened it. Detective Price stood there exactly as I remembered. Same coat, same unreadable expression. But his eyes, they weren't neutral anymore. They were calculating. You shouldn't have come here, he said. I leaned against the doorframe like I had nothing to hide. Funny, I replied. I was just about to say the same thing to you. For a brief second, something flickered across his face. Then it was gone. He stepped forward slightly. You're in danger. You don't understand what you've gotten involved in. I almost laughed. That's interesting, I said quietly, because it feels like you understand it perfectly. Silence stretched between us. Then I tilted my head just slightly. Daniel Vance, I said. That was it. That was the crack. It was small, barely visible. But I saw it. His control slipped for half a second, and I knew I was right. You should come with me, he said, voice tightening just a little. We can sort this out properly. Downtown? I asked. Yes. Where there are no cameras you don't control. His jaw locked, and that was when I delivered the line that changed everything. I already sent the files. It was a lie, but it was a good one. Because it didn't just challenge him, it forced him to hesitate. To who? He asked. I shrugged slightly. A journalist. Time-stamped. Automatic release if anything happens to me. Another lie. But now he had a problem. Because if there was even a chance it was true, he couldn't touch me, not here, not now. For the first time since this started, the power shifted. He knew it. I knew it. And suddenly I wasn't the one being cornered. He stepped back, just slightly. Emma, he said, quieter now, you're making a mistake. I met his eyes. No, I said calmly. You did. Then I stepped forward, closing the distance just enough to make him uncomfortable. They chose the wrong person. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I walked past him, just like that. No running, no panic, just control. Because the truth was, I wasn't safe yet, not even close. But I wasn't helpless anymore either. 3 weeks later, everything exploded. The documents led to an investigation, not just into my company, but into a network: insurance fraud, case manipulation. People paid to deny claims, bury evidence, and silence anyone who got too close. Daniel Vance hadn't been a victim. He had been a whistleblower, and they had tried to erase him, but they failed because of one mistake. They used me, and they assumed I'd stay quiet. Detective Price was arrested 2 days after the story broke. The receptionist disappeared. The motel shut down. And the company I worked for, under federal investigation. As for me, I went back to my apartment. Same flickering kitchen light, same quiet life. But everything felt different, because now I understood something I didn't before. Not every accident is random. Not every victim is chosen by chance. And sometimes, the moment you think you're saving someone else, you're actually stepping into something designed to destroy you. I stood by the window that night, watching the rain fall again, thinking about that road, that moment, that decision. I thought I saved his life. But the truth was, he was trying to save mine. And they almost made sure I never understood that.